Hello, I'm Scott Christensen, President and founder of Alliance Group, and I want to share with you a couple of things today about the value of financial certainty. One of the things that we teach our clients is to better understand the power and the value of having a financially certain future. We tell people that the economic future that we're living into is really quite different than anything we've experienced in the past. We believe we're in a new financial paradigm that requires an entirely new way of thinking. In fact, I think it was, at least this quote is attributed to Albert Einstein, you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem in the first place. And that's kind of where we're at today. We're not living into the last 40 years. We're living into the next 40 years. And to give you some contrast and some comparison, 40 years ago, we did not have the internet. 40 years ago, we had no social media. 40 years ago, we were just making the transition from the standard pension plan to the 401k retirement system. And to help you better understand what that meant is that back in 1985, for example, about 70% of the population worked for a company that had a pension where they put the money away, they managed the money, and they guaranteed the retirement payout. So employees had little or nothing to do with their retirement other than going to work and putting in the time. Well, fast forward to the age of the 401k. Once we began to make that transition, today, less than 7% of the population actually work for a company that has a pension. So we now, and this is not a bad thing, but we're entirely responsible in many cases for our own retirement. And what that means is that we shifted from somebody else taking care of us to now us being required to kind of pay attention to what our retirement plan is going to look like. Well, unfortunately, we transitioned from saving for retirement, which again, somebody else did the bulk of it, to now investing for retirement. But we haven't made the transition to understanding how money really works in the 401k. For example, the way the market goes up and down each and every day, each and every year, has an impact on the ultimate rate of return during the accumulation phase. How that same market works during the distribution phase or the retirement withdrawal phase is significantly different, meaning that during the accumulation phase, as you're leaving money there, when the market goes down, you can wait for the market to come back, and the money that is in there will be able to rise as the market returns to its previous levels and continues on. But during the withdrawal phase, what we now are doing is we are beginning to pull funds out. And as we pull funds out of our 401ks, and let's say we do it during a period of time when the market is going down. Now we still need to have our income, but the market's going down. Therefore, as we pull that money out, it's gone. It's not there for when the market rebounds. So there's a significantly different impact to the volatility, or there's a significant different impact because of volatility during the withdrawal phase. Okay, so as we talk more about creating financial certainty, one of the things that we want to help our clients understand is that because things are shifting, because things are not the way that they were 30, 40 years ago, you can't make the same assumptions. I'll give you an example of that. Currently, there are 81 million baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964. Everybody's aware of that. And starting in January 1st of 2011, baby boomers began reaching the age of 65 at the rate of 8 to 10,000 every single day. And that's continued now for the last decade. But what a lot of people don't recognize and understand or know is that about 2/3 of all baby boomers were born in the last 6 or 7 years of that time frame, 1946 to 1964. And so about 50 to 55 million baby boomers are reaching age 65 over the next 6 years. So what does that mean? It means that, for example, That group of individuals have been putting money into Social Security during their working lifetime. They are going to stop contributing to Social Security, and they're going to begin to draw down on Social Security. Now, some might not draw it until 66 or 67. Some may wait till 70 or 72. But the fact remains that over the next several years, there's going to be a larger flow of funds out of Social Security than there ever has been in the past. So to kind of help you understand the impact of how this is operating, everybody knows that Social Security has been in trouble, but we've been tracking it since the late 90s. And in fact, in 1998, the Social Security Department started sending out paper reports. And in those paper reports, there was a paragraph. And that paragraph stayed the same for about 15 or 16 years. And we've asked people if they know what is on the front page of their Social Security report. And the answer is they don't, because most people when they got that report, they skipped over the front page, they opened it up to see what their benefit was going to be. And in that paragraph on the front page, the Social Security Administration was telling us, under the direction of the federal government, they were telling us that Social Security was in trouble. Again, we already know that, but it was defining exactly how much in trouble it was. For example, in 2008, the paragraph on the front page said that the Social Security Trust Fund, without any adjustments, was going to reach a crossover point in 2017 in which they would pay more in benefits than they were receiving. And that by the year 2041, the fund would be exhausted and that there would only be enough money to pay about 77 cents on the dollar. 2 years later, that same report, that same paragraph, said that the crossover point was not 2017, it was 2016, and that the fund was going to be running out of money in 2037, not 2041. So they were telling us that the fund was in trouble. And again, we all knew this. But then 4 years later, in 2014, for the first time in, like I said, about 15 years, that paragraph changed. And it said, now, however, the Social Security Trust Fund was in serious trouble. And without major adjustments, it was going to run out of money by the year 2033. Now, what's interesting is that there was something very important missing from that paragraph that had been in all the paragraphs before, and that was the crossover point. Well, the crossover point, that point in which the fund is taking in less than it's paying out, was actually hit in 2010, not 2016, not 2017, but in 2010. Now, how did that happen? How could they be off so far? Well, if you remember, back in 2008 through 2010, we had a recession. And during the height of that recession, we had nearly 16% unemployment. And unemployed people don't pay into Social Security. So at that point in time, we hit the crossover point. More was going out than was being brought in. Now we got back to much lower unemployment numbers, what would be considered maybe full employment. And so we popped above that crossover point. But we had another event here in 2020 in which we had about 13 or 14% unemployment for a period of time. Again, we have a period of time where people are not paying into Social Security. The end result is that Social Security has been impacted significantly, and we are going to be running out of money sooner, and we are going to face a challenge where benefits may have to be reduced. Now, I believe that we're going to all receive Social Security. The question is just how much and when. Are we going to have to wait a long time before we can get it? Are they going to raise the retirement age to 70 or 72, which is potentially the possibility? So that's one impact that is facing us today, this economic future that we're living into. Another impact that we're dealing with is that because we've transitioned from a pension plan to a self-funded retirement plan, 401ks, the issue there is that as people begin to reach retirement age and begin to start retiring or leaving the workforce, what happens at that point is that, let's say that the average person is putting in $300 or $400 a month. Maybe they're getting a match, another couple of $100. you're looking at $500 to $600 a month at best going into the market. Every time that you make a contribution to your 401k, the administrators buy shares of the mutual funds that you've selected. And so that is the demand that is happening. In other words, there's lots of people buying lots of shares because they're funding their retirement. But what happens when you shift that? When we reach a point where we have the majority of the baby boomers beginning to not only stop contributing, but they're going to begin to withdraw. What impact does it have when 80 or 90 million people who've reached retirement age begin to withdraw rather than contributing? Think about it this way. If the average person putting money into their 401k was putting in, say, $400 a month, and their company was matching it at 50%, another $200 a month, that's $600 a month going into the account. Well, there's about 81 million baby boomers out there, and there's a few of the Generation X that are coming up behind them that are starting to reach retirement age or getting very close to it. And so over the next 15 to 20 plus years, we're going to see nearly 100 to 120 million people reaching retirement age, and they're all going to be withdrawing from the stock market. And let's say the average person withdrew $2,000 or $3,000. You can see that the math doesn't work. If you have, let's say, 80 million people withdrawing $3,000 a month, and you have 80 million people putting in $600 a month, there's not enough people to buy the shares that we want to sell to supplement our retirement. Anytime there's an excess of anything, if the demand is not as high as the supply, general economics suggests that there will be a lowering in value, meaning the stock market potentially could go down as baby boomers begin to withdraw money from the stock market, selling off more and more shares. So all these things tend to create a scenario where the future is uncertain. And so what we teach our clients is how to create financial certainty. And part of the way that we do that is to help them understand that there's things that they think to be true about money that really aren't. And if that were the case, when would you want to know? There's also this idea that there's things that you don't know that you don't know. And when we sit down with our clients, we help them identify the highest and best use for every dollar. We want to reduce risk to the lowest level possible. We want them to reduce taxes to the lowest level possible, because that's another area that we're going to see a tremendous, potentially a tremendous increase, and that is in taxation. And so when we teach people about creating greater financial certainty, we're identifying the highest and best use of dollars. We're creating financial efficiency. We want every dollar working as hard as it can work with the least amount of risk, the least amount of taxation. And we also want it to do multiple jobs. We want it to create multiple benefits, create maximum benefits everywhere that we possibly can. Unlike the planning of 20 and 30 years ago, where you were just going to arrive at retirement and things were going to be fairly static. You're just going to collect your income and live your life, enjoying life without having to worry about the ups and downs of the market or future taxation. That economic future is not the one that we're living into. And as a result, we want to help you be prepared. So if you like what little bit you've heard here today, if you'd like more information about how to prepare to have a more secure, greater financial certainty, I'd like you to click on the button below, the subscribe button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be publishing more information there. We're also we'll have a link that you'll be able to click on and participate in receiving our paradigm shifting financial education series that will help you understand that this is not the last 40 years you're living into, it's the next 40, and things are really different. And we need to be prepared to think differently and act differently and do things that are really quite different than maybe some of the things that we've done in the past that we thought we'd be able to do going forward. So thank you for taking a minute and listening to me today. Look forward to sharing more information with you in the future.